or whatever Adam's playing. You can always head over to his Twitch channel. I'm not going anywhere though. I'm still going to be working on stuff here, but Adam's sometimes entertaining, and he's probably looking at, going to sleep sometime soon. So he's probably really tired, so he's probably going to be mumbling to himself a lot, and that can always be entertaining. Alright, so we have current state, pre-updating, state equals false, updating. Alright, like that. We've got all our transitions nicely set up. I'm going to throw these in a scope here in case I want to chunk this stuff up into a different spot. Kind of help me segment my code here while I'm working on it. Alright, so we should actually be all updating nicely for all those things. We need the uncreate, undestroy though. We've got the uncreate for everything, but now we need the undestroy. So let's see what we've got for entity actor. Let's see, we've got this logic object undestroy. So where is this logic object undestroy getting called? It'll be inside of the logic controller component, and we just have an on end play. So let's go to our end play of our movement controller component. Looks like we don't have an end play for it yet, so let's go ahead and make one. And then we need an onDestroy method for this thing, and it's going to be should be next to initialize. So let's implement it. Alright, and we're also going to have like if m current state does not equal null pointer, then in current state equals null pointer. But what we want to do is we want to call m current state be on exit with a null pointer on that. So on destroy, we're going to make sure to call on exit and then call on destroy on our actual states in case something on the on exit goes and touches something that like we don't recognize. So we can always guarantee that like if on enter is called, on exit is called, if on create is called, on destroy is called, the order is always guaranteed. All that sort of shenaniganry should be good to go. So let's see if that compiles. We should have all of our states running. We should be able to assign our blueprint to our entity. We should be able to run it, and it's going to spam the hell out of our message log with a bunch of trace statements, which is exactly what we want. We're going for a little while here. So let's rename this. We already had something called current state and all that. And we shouldn't be calling the b underscore, we should be calling the normal initialize and stuff, and then the class itself will handle the b's. Alright, transition to wanted state should take delta t. There we go. Excellent. Well, let's compile things because that's what I like doing, of course. So what's getting all pissed off? Yeah, we need to change all the things. We're kind of cramming a whole bunch of movement stuff into the movement system that, well, probably could have been set up much differently. I thought I had got all those. Obviously my eyes are not working as well as they were a while ago. And then maybe once we get this done, we can actually, you know, use some blueprints to do some things. It just made... I just keep making really complex systems. It's to avoid actually doing work, I think. It's like, I know, I need to like make a movement system. Cool. It's like I could either make the movement system or work on a whole bunch of shit that's not the movement system. And then I can make the movement system later. I think that's kind of how engineering goes sometimes. Is you just... Well, I need to write this system. Okay, I'll write all this other random garbage, and then I'll finally write the system next week. Alright, so we've got our states. So we should be able to go to our Bitey player proxy. No, not the player proxy, but the movement controller? No, it's... I swear to God, I should be able to see this asset. Like, this entity proxy should have stuff on it, but it's not showing it to me. For some reason, there's like... Yeah, it's like... You don't have the details panel, so it just doesn't exist. Alright, so we need the movement controller, and it should be Bitey movement new. So when we open this up, we should be able to run around like we normally had, but we have like now this log spam garbage going on. Group destroyed, state destroyed, our destroy has been called, our destroy Bitey movement controller has been called, undestroy for default state. Alright, so our destroys were called, our updates and pre-updates were called. State enter requiring unpre-updated Bitey movement. On initialization, state initialized, group initialized. Yeah, so group entered and all that stuff. So it looks like it all got called properly. So we're going to get rid of the update loop stuff so we don't have so much spam. Alright, so what are the other events that we want? We want like when we change when we change from being on the ground to not being on the ground, stuff like that. And we'll call the state, and we'll also call the controller. So it's going to be like void be on state change, and we want the physics state. Yeah, so we'll call it and we'll give it the old state and the new state, and we'll do that as well on the movements. Excuse me, the movement state. And the reason we're having this pass-through stuff here is so that we can actually override functions inside of blueprints or inside of C++ land, wherever we want to. And I didn't find a good way to do that other than having a pass-through function. There were some things that were supposed to allow it, but they didn't allow it nicely. It was kind of, documentation was either wrong or misleading, or I read it wrong. Alright, so on state change. So our movement object needs to So it looks like the only place that we do that is here. So we actually change our state. So if in current state equals new state, then we're not going to do anything. And then we're going to call beyond state change, and we're going to say old state is and in current state. And our if in current movement state does not equal null pointer, then in current movement state on state change old state in current state. Alright, so we should now be hooked up to receive when we like go from on the ground to in the air. So let's do something about that. Like now we can actually do things. I should probably also create a state that is kind of a base that we can make all of the rest of our movement states off of nicely, so you have something to start with instead of just like an empty canvas. It's like, okay, here's all the functions with the comment blocks and all that stuff, so that you can easily like, okay, I'm gonna make the movement controller for FatSack, and then just slap it in there, or the movement controller for Prowly or whatever. Where should we shove that? Placeholders? Probably in placeholders. Alright. Let's go to our default state here. Let's open up our new state, and we're going to have on state change. Alright, so let's see. State changed from space to so let's save that and let's see what happens when we play. State change from, alright, state change from on ground to in air and in air to on ground, so we can do things with that. So we've got that whole system actually working. And yeah, this is how we get our movement right here, is just that. And we've got all that set up nicely. Okay, well, let's go ahead and we'll just copy paste this whole thing over here. Guess we have to copy the whole thing. Custom event didn't copy across. Alright, our current movement state is null. Come on, Visual Studio. I gotta be like that. So it looks like our transition to wanted state is not working properly. So let's double check it. Alright, imp current, our wanted state is not anything. Well, it's probably this set next movement state. Yeah, okay, so it's basically going to say like if in current movement state does not equal null pointer, we're going to if in current movement state can switch, then we're going to set our wanted movement state to our next state. We're also going to check right here if in current movement state if in wanted movement state equals next state, then we're going to return true there. I guess, and next state does not equal null pointer. Alright, so if the current state is not null, then if we can switch, if we cannot switch, we should just return false. Otherwise, we'll just do this. Cool, that should work. Alright, get next movement state should definitely return this, and get current movement state should also return this. All right. Alright, so set movement state should set all the things. Transition to state. The current movement state is null, the wanted movement state is not null. So we are going to call on enter, then we're going to call nothing else. Alright, good. Now we're getting our double calls there. Sounds good. Alright, so determine camera allowance. View camera control data, determine camera allowance. I should go turn that off. Yeah, we can just get rid of those things so we don't have more log spam. Important to keep the log spam to a minimum. What I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to get to this to a good point where next time I can actually start working on the actual logic inside of these state machine things, and so I'll have made the system today, and then like tomorrow or whatever I'll actually start using the system. So let's see. Yeah. Probably true. Alright, so we've got all that going on, and all that on create, on destroy, on exit, and then on destroy. Excellent, so that's good to go. Let me just make sure that that is being called. Well, I did not see the on exit call on the state. So let's go take a look at that. Well, that's interesting. I've got this breakpoint right here set, and on exit is supposed to be called, but I'm getting the log line for it on exit called, but I'm not getting the breakpoint. So there must be something where if you're actually closing down the editor window that you don't get called back inside of blueprints or something. Interesting. Anyway, so let's make our placeholder stuff so we can do that. So it's going to be under where should I put stuff? See, we have splash, starter content, test logic is not really a great place to put it. I could put gameplay, macros, no. Looks like I put, like, this is a clean logic state for the AI. So it looks like that's where I put it. So I should put these things inside of widgets. So we'll go for movement and we'll just clone these over to widgets. So this will be clean movement controller. And clean movement state. So is there a way to assign like an asset thumbnail for a type? Just all of them? Because I'd like not to have the stupid little circle, but you know, something that's select asset, just using this asset. Whatever, it's not a big deal. Alright, so we have all that. Is there anything that we should do real quick on this to make sure we have it all set up? Yeah, I guess we should have a bitey movement controller thing, which should we should actually just kind of lay out our states that we're going to want. Is it realistically possible to make a game? Well, Unity doesn't have the blueprint stuff. Like, I think it's definitely possible in Unreal if you don't know programming to kind of muddle your way through this, but I mean, maybe the JavaScript stuff in Unity could work. You know, you don't have to be super programmer for that, but it is programming, you know, technically. Alright, so we're going to have bitey movement controller. Man, there's just so many. This would be bitey idle state. And I think I want a folder in here that's for states. I mean, if people, yeah, just hire a programmer for Unity, yeah. Never pay them after shipping the game. Oh man, that's rough. If alphanumeric char offers you a job, just say no. Just don't do it. So let's get our walk. Let's get, like, what are these called anyway? We've got them somewhere here. Inside of our entity, we've got walk, yeah, stationary, walk, trot, run, dash. So it's not idle, it's stationary. Oh my god, Unreal, what are you doing? Let's walk, trot, run. No programming knowledge needed. Just hire someone. Well, that's one way to do it. I don't know, I think you'd probably have more luck writing a game in JavaScript for your web browser than writing something in Unity. Because there's not that much stuff to do if you're like just making something simple in the web browser. And if nothing else, you'll end up with a shitty website. Alright, so if I go to this movement controller component, I can go to the class defaults, I can add more states in here. So you have stationary, we've got walk, trot, run, dash. How in the hell do you remove an element? Like, I want to remove this element from this array. Clear, clear, click. Oh my god, how do you remove from a frickin' array in Unreal Editor? And remove all elements. Where's remove one element? There's no trash can. God damn it. Okay, it's in the drop down. Like, Jesus Christ. Why is this so hard? Alright, stationary state is in there, so we compile that. And we can go from this stationary state. This will be stationary. And let's open up all these states. So stationary. This is the movement controller. It's the entity, so this will be dash. This will be run. This will be trot. This one. Alright, so what I should be able to do is just grab the movement. Well, this is the movement controller. Yeah, okay, this is wrong. Okay. So in this update, I should be able to call on the movement, like set wanted. Oh yeah, I forgot to set this up properly, didn't I? So set next movement state should take we're actually supposed to look this up in a map. So we need another movement state function here, which is set movement state direct, which is this one. And we need a set movement state here, which will grab the movement state pointer out of the lookup. So it's basically going to say if state lookup dot contains next state equals false, then we're just going to return false. Otherwise, we're going to say yeah, we'll do it like that. And let's also do a warning log here. I'm going to do a warn log. Unable to find state for set S, and let's do next state. Alright, yeah, so okay, if next state equals null pointer, then we just return set next movement state direct. Otherwise, if next state, yeah, it's going to be next state name. Can we get the name? Yeah, get name. So we just do star get name on that thing, and the warn log, unable to find state to transition to called block. Alright, so that should allow us to transition to a state and use the lookup stuff so we don't use the static classes. That's a pretty big one that can screw you over, is you forget that you're using the static instance of the class instead of the local instance if you're in Blueprint land. Alright, cool. Yeah, I guess today was just a bunch of yak shaving after we finished up fixing the movement stuff. It's like, I was like, yeah, we'll get to some interesting stuff in movement. And then they're like, all right, I'm going to eat food, and then I'm going to talk about stuff. And then I spend the rest of the time building a whole bunch of BS, and then getting nothing accomplished. Game development. Yeah. Alright, so we'll go to our stationary state here real quick, and I should be able to call movement, set next wanted movement state, and all I have to do is, why can't I select an asset? Because it needs to be a T subclass sub. This dumbass. Shit. Alright, there we go. Now maybe we'll be able to call this blueprints. Basically the idea there was we would be able to nicely create an asset and then refer to that asset, and the T subclass of allows you to do that. Kind of the thing that sucks about T subclass of though is you can't actually pass in the parent of the class, you have to use a subclass. And I don't know any other way to get the blueprint stuff to work with both the parent class and the subclass. Which is kind of stupid in my mind. Be like, where's the thing that's just like of type, and then it allows, you know, you would imagine that just having a pointer here to like a movement state would be like, okay, so you could pass in a blueprint that has a parent of that type. You're like, nope, can't, won't do it, impossible. And maybe it's because I don't know the way to do it, but T subclass is kind of its own little thorny thing. And that was a pretty insidious bug that I was about to have. I was looking up the state lookup and then not using the lookup state. Thank God for reading over the code you wrote 5 minutes ago. The hell was I doing 5 minutes ago that I made such a dumbass error? Oh yeah, I was trying to code. That's what I was doing. Trying and failing. Alright, pull this thing back up and actually do it. So set next movement state, I should be able to say the bitey walk state. And let's just say on update, transition over to that thing from the stationary, and we'll just make sure it actually works. So in our log, we should see when we start up, on exit called for default state, on enter called for default state. Alright, so let's do stationary state, and on exit for stationary state. And let's pop open the other thing real quick. We went from stationary to walk, so let's just grab walk off of here. On enter of walk state. Alright, so on exit called for stationary state, and then on enter called for walk state. Alright, cool, so we've got our state changes all working properly. No. Cool. So, we've got all that done. Let's see, is there anything else small that I want to work on right now? No, doesn't look like it. Alright, well, I think I'm pretty much done for today here. We fixed up a whole bunch of stuff. We created our whole state machine so that we can start messing with our movement stuff inside of blueprints nicely. Previously, this was not something we could touch inside of blueprints. And I figured out how we're going to actually do our movement state changes, which is going to be custom states and all that for all of our movement, which is pretty cool. And I'm going to start implementing all that stuff probably tomorrow, and we'll be doing all the things. Let's see, is there anything that I need to think about that we also need to hook up to be able to do this? So I mean, it would be nice to get messages from the virtual controller. I mean, the virtual controller is already hooked up. You know, basically what I'd like to do is be able to send a message to the movement controller from the logic controller and be like, hey, you need to start sprinting or something like that. Though I could actually change the states just directly from the logic controller. Just be like, oh, okay, well, go to hit B, which is like, you know, maybe your dash ability or something. So you should kick it up a notch. Just think about it. What would that look like? So the question is, how do we get from our kind of logic controller, which is in our player, and how do we get our movement object and actually interact with it? So like we want, if you hit the B button or something, like, you know, the sprint key, we should kick you over to the sprint state or something. I mean, we could do it by name, just be like, hey, you should do sprint. We could have the movement controller check for an ability being used or something. We could have the movement controller check for the virtual controller actually doing something. So let me see, what are the three options, or the options? So we did all this. So options for triggering a dash from our logic controller. If we call our movement controller blueprint with dash, like we can make a function called dash or something. Color movement controller to change to a specific state. Get state by name, because like if we swapped out the states in the background, like if we're referring to them directly by blueprint type, then, you know, we wouldn't be able to navigate FATSAC around if FATSAC has the same like dash ability or not dash ability. The movement controller could look at the virtual controller. If we had the movement controller look at the virtual controller is a controller on an entity. Like every entity, even if they are controlled by an AI or something, actually has a virtual controller on it. And, you know, nobody's pressing the buttons on it, but we could write an AI that instead of actually